We live in a time where we can transmit a message across the globe in less than a second, yet struggle to understand the message coming from within our own hearts. We decode the universe with telescopes peering into distant galaxies, but fail to comprehend the emotional black holes forming inside our collective psyche. We talk about quantum computing and AI consciousness, but many still live out patterns shaped by fear, tradition, and unconscious imitation. This is the paradox of progress. Or capacity to evolve externally has far outpaced our willingness to evolve internally. And the dissonance between those two is tearing at the fabric of our society. If you were to zoom out far above the planet and look back through the eyes of a cosmic observer, you'd see a species at the crossroads. One foot stuck in a world driven by survival, control, and separation. The other reaching towards something greater, a world shaped not by dominance, but by resonance. This isn't just a poetic metaphor. Just as the laws of gravity dictate that massive bodies shape the paths of nearby objects, so too do powerful ideas shape the trajectory of civilizations. And today, the most powerful idea threatening to upend the status quo isn't a new technology, it's a new level of human consciousness. We're on the verge of a revolution, not through war or politics, but through how we think and understand ourselves. It's the kind of shift we see in science where a new theory redefines our understanding of the universe. It's not about a sudden epiphany, but a gradual change in our collective consciousness. And in this shift, a new kind of leadership is emerging, not one defined by authority over others, but by mastery of self. These leaders aren't draped in symbols of authority, but rather in the confidence that comes from a deep understanding of themselves, just like scientists who are grounded in their understanding of the universe. They are not waiting to be elected, they are answering a call that is cosmic in origin, evolutionary in nature, and undeniable in its pull. If you're one of them, you've probably felt it not as an ambition, but as a knowing. A magnetic pull towards something that cannot be explained by traditional measures of success. You see systems and feel their cracks. You hear language and detect its untruths. You walk through institutions and feel the weight of their expiration. Yet, rather than collapse into despair, you feel called to create. Not to rage against the old, but to embody the new. This is what it means to be a new Earth leader. Leadership isn't about assuming a title or playing a role. It's about how we understand and interact with the world around us. It's about tapping into the knowledge that science provides and using that to inform our actions. The more we align ourselves with the discoveries of the universe, the clearer our path becomes. It's not a mystical frequency we need to tune into, but rather a rational understanding of how everything from gravity to quantum mechanics shapes the world we live in. It's like a gravitational lens in astrophysics mass, so powerful it bends light itself. A new Earth leader bends perception not through manipulation, but by becoming so fully aligned with truth that the very space around them begins to shift. Their presence clarifies, their energy recalibrates. Their integrity becomes the gravitational center around which clarity orbits. But let us not romanticize this path. It is not easy. Stars don't simply emerge quietly into the cosmos. They are born in the violent collapse of gas and dust, driven by the immense forces of gravity and pressure. This is a process called stellar nucleosynthesis, where hydrogen atoms fuse to form helium under extreme heat, releasing energy and light. It's a spectacular process of cosmic transformation driven by the fundamental forces of nature that govern our universe. Likewise, those called to lead the next epoch of humanity are forged through inner collapse, ego death, and the tectonic shifts of identity. True progress comes when we're honest with ourselves about our assumptions and our limitations. It's like scientific inquiry. You don't get anywhere by pretending to know the answers. You ask questions, challenge your own beliefs, and let evidence guide you. And when the answer is no, you let go. You peel away the masks, not to be seen, but to finally see. You surrender the script society handed you and begin writing your own, not with ink, but with intention. Because leadership isn't about giving orders or issuing commands. It's about leading through action, just as a scientist leads by presenting evidence and letting that data guide decisions. In science, authority is earned by demonstrating results, not by claiming power. Similarly, leadership is rooted in clear reasoning and applying the scientific method to solve problems. You are no longer speaking to minds. You are speaking to frequencies. You're no longer managing behavior. You're initiating evolution. This path begins with sovereignty not political, but personal. The realization that no external force can dictate the integrity of your soul. That your power was never in your titles, achievements, or validation from others was always in your ability to choose your response, to claim your voice, to anchor your energy. And from this place of inner autonomy, you begin to lead not by imposing, but by inviting. Not by controlling, but by exemplifying. A true leader doesn't base their decisions on what's popular or widely accepted. They rely on the scientific method. This means observing the world around us, gathering evidence, and using reason to make informed decisions. The scientific method is a process of discovery that involves asking questions, testing hypotheses, and refining our understanding based on new data. Leadership in this sense is not about following trends, it's about seeking truth wherever the evidence leads. In those quiet moments, when the world offers no immediate rewards or recognition, they rely on the data at hand and the knowledge they've acquired to take action. Leadership, from a scientific perspective, is about applying reason and critical thinking, even when the path isn't clear. And they did. Not for applause, not for comfort, but because their conscience is not for sale. Their mission is not optional. Their authenticity is non-negotiable. And it is precisely this kind of leader that the planet now requires. Not leaders who maintain order, but leaders who spark evolution. Not leaders who manage appearances, but leaders who transmute energy. Not those who echo the noise of culture, but those who emit the frequency of clarity. If this resonates with you, then perhaps you are already walking that path. Perhaps you have already felt the inner rebellion, the quiet refusal to participate in illusions. The sacred rage that burns not to destroy, but to purify. The kind of longing that no material gain can satisfy, because it's not a desire of the ego, but a calling of the soul. And you are not alone. No one is meant to walk this path alone. Just as galaxies are not isolated, but are formed from clusters of stars, the progress of humanity is a collective effort. We are scattered across continents, yet connected by the common thread of knowledge and the shared desire to solve the challenges we face. The power of evolution comes from collaboration, not from isolated individuals, but from people coming together to share their insights and work toward a greater understanding of the universe. Through resonance, through a shared commitment to truth, growth, and the awakening of human potential. The goal isn't to build a utopia or an ideal society, it's about the continuous evolution of humanity. This evolution is driven by our ability to apply scientific knowledge to address the real challenges we face, from climate change to inequality. It's a process of ongoing learning and adaptation, where each discovery contributes to a more sustainable and informed future. As we progress, the solutions we create will be grounded in evidence, not idealism. Every step we take in understanding the laws of nature brings us closer to a more informed future, one shaped not by idealism, but by the relentless pursuit of truth through science. And leadership is not a destination in this process. It is the embodiment of that evolution. It is not about having answers, but about holding questions. It is not about certainty, but about willingness. Willingness to see, to feel, to stand, and above all, to love deeply, fiercely, intelligently, because the future isn't determined by those who shout. The loudest is shaped by those who can bring together the most coherent ideas based on sound reasoning and evidence. The loudest voice might attract attention, but it's the clarity and alignment of well-supported arguments that drive meaningful change. Just as a scientific theory gains traction not because it's the most popular, but because it best explains the data, the future will belong to those who can bring clarity and insight to the world's greatest challenges. And those who are aligned, those who are clear, become lighthouses in the fog of collective confusion. Not because they shout, but because they shine. Not because they fight, but because they refuse to dim. And so the question isn't, are you ready to lead? The question is, are you willing to become everything that leadership in the new earth requires? Because the shift is already underway, and the time to remember who you are cosmically, biologically, spiritually is now. When you strip away the distractions, the accolades, the carefully curated identities we wear, like spacesuits built for the gravity of other people's expectations, what remains is the raw, undeniable truth that you are not here to conform. You are here to contribute, not to recycle patterns of the past, but to generate something original from the nucleus of your own awakened awareness. That, in essence, is the foundation of New Earth leadership. Not imitation, but origination. In the universe, entropy is inevitable. Everything tends toward disorder unless energy is consciously applied to create structure, meaning coherence. So it is with human systems, the old world, like a star exhausting its fuel, is collapsing into its own weight political systems, fraying economic structures, eroding cultural narratives, disintegrating under their own contradiction. And yet, just as stars die to seed the cosmos with heavier elements, carbon, nitrogen, iron, so too, does the death of the old give rise to the possibility of something more evolved. The New Earth leader sees not the collapse, but the compost, the fertile ground from which new consciousness may grow. But this requires a shift in perception. It requires retooling the internal lens through which you interpret the world. Where others see chaos, you must learn to perceive the pattern beneath the surface. Where others seek comfort, you must seek clarity. Because comfort has never been the birthplace of leadership. Discontent has. That nagging, unshakable sense that something essential is missing, that things could be more whole, more just, more true. This is not dysfunction, it is the prelude to purpose. And yet purpose, in this context, is not something you chase like a satellite orbiting a distant sun. It is something you become through daily acts of alignment. Through the willingness to feel deeply even when it's inconvenient. Through the refusal to participate in conversations that betray your values just to preserve artificial harmony. You are not here to keep the peace, you are here to expand the definition of it. To show that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of coherence. Inner coherence, moral coherence, energetic coherence. Let's be clear, coherence doesn't mean sameness. In physics, constructive interference happens when waves align not, when they're identical, but when they are in resonance. Likewise, a society does not thrive through uniformity, but through the symphony of authentic voice each vibrating at their truth, yet coexisting in harmony. The New Earth leader knows this. They do not erase difference. They embrace it. They understand that diversity is not a threat to unity, it is the engine of evolution. And so you begin to lead not by declaring yourself a leader, but by being willing to go first, to speak what others are only whispering internally, to act on intuition while others wait for permission, to build when others wait for instructions. Because leadership is not about holding power, it's about navigating uncharted territory, much like a scientist forging ahead with a new theory. A good leader doesn't need a pre-drawn map. They rely on evidence, observations, and data to guide their decisions, constantly adapting as new information becomes available. In science, the process is never status. It's about constantly reevaluating our position and course based on new discoveries. This is where your courage matters most, not in grand heroic moments, but in the daily decision to walk in alignment when it would be so much easier to play along. It's in saying no to what doesn't resonate, even when it costs you comfort. It's in saying yes to the unknown, even when it threatens your stability, because stability is often the enemy of growth. And the new Earth will not be built by those who fear the shifting ground it, will be built by those who learn to dance with it. You will feel the call to lead not as a trumpet blast, but as a gravitational pull toward a deeper integrity. It won't always make logical sense. It may dismantle plans. It may unsettle relationships. It may unravel the version of you that people have grown comfortable with. And that's okay, because your soul is not here to be consistent with your past, it's here to be consistent with your becoming. And this becoming is not theoretical, it's embodied. It's seen in how you treat the cashier, how you speak when no one is listening, how you carry yourself when there is nothing to gain. The cosmos doesn't reward performance, responds to resonance. And when you become clear, when your frequency stops mimicking the noise of the world and begins emitting the song of your truth, the universe moves with you. Doors open not through force, but through flow. Allies appear not through strategy, but through shared signal. Impact is made not through effort, but through essence. And yet, none of this exempts you from challenge. The road of a New Earth leader is laced with resistance from enemies, but from the echoes of your own former self. The part of you still afraid to shine too brightly, still worried about being misunderstood, still clinging to the illusion that safety comes from blending in. But just as a black hole distorts time and space, fear will distort your perception of what's possible until you decide to no longer let it. Fear is not inherently bad. It's a biological response to uncertainty, an ancient mechanism that signals when our survival is at risk. The real danger lies in ignoring or suppressing that fear because it can prevent us from making informed decisions. When we acknowledge fear and examine it critically, it can serve as valuable information, guiding us to the areas where we need to grow. In a way, fear becomes a signal, just like the nervous system alerts us to danger, helping us adjust and evolve. And that's where leadership lives not in the comfort zone, but in the edge zone. The edge of convention, the edge of belief, the edge of identity, the edge of what you thought you were capable of. Every leader of consequence, from Galileo to Gandhi, from Hypatia to Harriet Tubman, from Tesla to Thich Nhat Hanh, lived on the edge. They saw farther because they stood where others refused to go. And that's where you are now, at the edge of an old world unraveling and a new one waiting to be born through your willingness to live as though it's already here. This doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. The stars didn't ask permission to shine. They simply did. The galaxies didn't submit a plan. They simply spun. Your job is not to control the unfolding, it's to participate in it, to embody a new way of being so fully that the outdated ones can't survive in your presence. That is the power of a conscious leader. Not to force awakening, but to normalize it. And in doing so, you remind the world of something it forgot, that leadership is not rare. It is innate, it is encoded, it is dormant, only until it is chosen. And once chosen, it does not require applause. It does not demand perfection. It asks only for consistency, for devotion, for truth. Because in the end, what you radiate is what you lead with. And the earth is listening. There's a moment quiet, internal, often unnoticed, when a person stops seeking meaning in the external world and begins generating it from within. It is the instant you realize that leadership isn't a destination, but a decision, a choice to rise again and again, no matter how many times the world misunderstands your intentions or mislabels your silence as weakness, a choice to walk with integrity, even when it costs you popularity, a choice to leave the comfort of the collective illusion in favor of the uncertainty of inner truth. It begins with language, the words you no longer say, the stories you stop repeating. Because language is architecture for consciousness, and the New Earth leader becomes intentional with every brick. You stop saying, I can't, and start asking, what would it take? You stop saying, that's just how it is, and begin wondering, what if it isn't? These small revolutions in thought ripple outward, altering the vibrational signature of your life, and those around you feel it, even if they can't explain it. And slowly, subtly, without announcing your arrival, you begin to lead. Not through domination, but by demonstration. You become the evidence that another way is possible. You model what it means to thrive in a world built for survival. You carry your joy not as denial, but as resistance. You wield your vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a gateway to trust. Because a true leader knows it's not just what you build, it's the energy with which you build it. And as your frequency stabilizes, something profound begins to happen. Others find you not because you market yourself to them, but because your signal cuts through the noise. Like tuning a radio to a frequency only a few can hear, you begin to attract people who feel like home. Not because you agree on everything, but because you share a devotion to truth, to evolution, to possibility. These are your Pioplinat, a tribe of sameness, but a constellation of souls orbiting the same inner sun. Together, you begin to co-create. Not by committee, but by coherence. Not by control, but by collaboration. And in this collaboration, something ancient awakens a memory, encoded in the collective unconscious, that humanity was always meant to function not as a hierarchy, but as a symphony. Each part distinct, yet interdependent. Each voice unique, yet harmonious. The New Earth leader doesn't compete, they compose. They understand that unity is not uniformity, that harmony doesn't require agreement, it requires alignment. And alignment comes not from suppressing difference, but from honoring it. So they create space not just for themselves, but for others to rise. They understand that their power multiplies when others remember their own. They are not the star, they are the gravitational force that allows others to shine without collapsing. What differentiates effective leadership in today's world is the ability to foster collaboration and innovation. In the past, leaders often operated from a mindset of scarcity competing for limited resources. Today, the most impactful leaders focus on abundancino, in the sense of accumulating more, but in fostering environments where ideas, knowledge, and opportunities are shared freely. This approach mirrors scientific collaboration, where breakthroughs emerge not from hoarding information, but from sharing insights across disciplines. The old hoards power, the new distributes it. The old seeks followers, the new inspires leaders. Because this is not a movement of one, this is a migration of many, from fear to freedom, from hierarchy to harmony, from disconnection to divine remembering. And it is precisely in the subtle, everyday choices that this leadership becomes visible. In choosing to listen instead of react, in choosing stillness over noise, in choosing clarity over comfort, in choosing expansion when the ego begs for contraction, in choosing to forgive when revenge would feel more satisfying. These are not small things. They are the quiet architecture of a new civilization being built, not on blueprints, but on behavior. A true leader understands that every decision has an impact on the world around us. Every action, every step we take, whether it's advocating for scientific discovery or taking steps to protect our environment, sends a signal to others about what is possible. These actions aren't just symbolic, they have real-world consequences. The future is shaped by our willingness to apply knowledge to the challenges we face and to make informed, rational choices that push us toward a sustainable and thriving society. Every moment of alignment is a seed planted in the quantum soil of collective consciousness. And though you may never see the tree that grows from your choice to live in truth, you plant it anyway. Because you're not leading for applause, you're leading for the unborn generations who will one day call this planet home. And that requires surrender, not the passive kind, not the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of giving into your own highest wisdom, to the deeper intelligence that animates your intuition, that whispers through your dreams, that nudges you toward that conversation, that leap, that beginning. The rational mind may resist, but the cosmos responds not to logicity, it responds to coherence. And when you're coherent, when your heart and mind and actions align, you move like a force of nature. Not recklessly, but inevitably. In physics, there's a term called phase transition. It's the point at which a substance changes form not gradually, but all at once. Ice doesn't slowly become water, it melts when the threshold is reached. The same is true for consciousness. The future of humanity won't be shaped by incremental policy changes or minor tweaks to outdated systems. It will come from a paradigm shift, a major transition in how we think, how we approach the challenges we face. This shift will happen when people begin to embrace the scientific method fully, adopting evidence-based solutions to problems like climate change, inequality, and sustainability. We won't wait for permission from outdated structures. Instead, we'll move forward, empowered by knowledge and the drive to solve real-world problems. And you are that threshold. You are part of a vast network of energy and matter connected to the very fabric of the universe. Just as a single particle can influence the behavior of an entire system, your actions, guided by knowledge and understanding, can contribute to larger shifts in society. It's not about mystical energy, it's about the real, measurable impact that each individual can have when they engage with the world scientifically, thoughtfully, and with purpose. Not because of what you do, but because of who you're willing to become. You see, there's a common misconception about leadership that it requires answers, that it demands certainty, that to lead is to declare, to instruct, to know. But the leaders of the new earth know better. They know that real wisdom begins with not knowing, that clarity is not the absence of questions, but the courage to ask better ones. That insight is born not in the echo chambers of agreement, but in the friction of authentic inquiry. They know that to lead is not to perform, but to feel deeply, relentlessly, to stand in a world numbed by distraction and dare to be awake, to dare to grieve, to dare to hope, to dare to imagine a future not built on fear, but on possibility. And that takes more than intellect, it takes presence. The kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but commands it through silence, through authenticity, through grounded clarity. We've often confused noise with leadership, thinking that the loudest voice is the most powerful. But take a black hole, for example, the most intense gravitational force in the universe. It doesn't make a sound, because nothing can escape it, not even light. Its influence, however, bends space-time itself. This is a perfect metaphor for leadership. The strongest influence often comes not from loud commands, but from the subtle power of understanding and insight. A new Earth leader does the same. They don't seek to impress, they seek to express. They don't manipulate outcomes, they master their alignment. They are not driven by results, they are moved by resonance. They are not chasing success, they are embodying significance. And that embodiment is where everything changes. Because when you lead from essence, not ego, you become a mirror reflecting to others what they have forgotten about themselves. Not by telling them who they are, but by being who you are so fully that they remember who they've always been. That's not charisma, that's coherence. This kind of leadership is not about being above, it's about being within. It's about walking with, not in front of. It's about attuning to the pulse of the collective and adjusting your rhythm accordingly, not to please, but to harmonize. And harmony, in the scientific sense, is not sameness, it's synchronized diversity. It's different frequencies aligning in shared space, amplifying one another without distortion. The leader of the new earth is the tuner knot, the conductor. You've likely felt it already, that quiet compulsion to realign your life. That voice urging you to release what no longer fits, to simplify what's become too complex, to tell the truth where silence has been easier. It's not a breakdown. It's the breaking open of the shell around your deeper self. It's not destruction. It's the birth canal of your destiny. Because in every era of human history, a particular type of being emerges, not to preserve the world as it is, but to shape the world to come. These are the transitional leaders, the bridge builders, the architects of frequency. They are not always understood in their time. Galileo was persecuted for looking at the stars. Hypatia was killed for preserving knowledge. But they did not serve the comfort of the current, they served the integrity of the eternal. And you are among them, not because you asked to be, not because you trained for it, but because something in you remembers, something in you resonates, something in you cannot stay asleep, no matter how much easier it might be. And it's that something, not your resume, not your accolades, not your followers, that makes you a leader. You feel called to bring clarity where there is confusion, to bring dignity where there is dismissal, to bring wholeness where there is fracture, and sometimes to bring disruption where there is stagnation. Not to destroy, but to reveal. Not to dismantle for the sake of collapse, but to create space for evolution. In astrophysics, when a star collapses, it can undergo a dramatic transformation, a supernova that momentarily outshines entire galaxies. It's the universe's way of resetting, of making room for something new. Just like breakthroughs in science often come from a breakdown of old ideas, perhaps that is what your pain has been. Not a punishment, but a preparation. The pressure that precedes the light. The contraction before expansion. The very evidence that you were being reshaped for impact far beyond your comprehension. Because the new earth doesn't need more experts. It needs more examples. More beings willing to walk their talk, to embody peace in chaos, to live honesty in a world addicted to illusion, to offer presence when distraction is easier, to move with purpose in a culture of performative success. This is not glamorous work. It's not viral, it's not comfortable, but it's sacred, and it's real, and it's what you came for. You didn't come here to convince the world. You came here to become so aligned that your very presence becomes evidence. Evidence that evolution is not just possible, it's inevitable. And that the future isn't waiting to be built. It's waiting to be remembered. Through you, in the end, leadership isn't about scale, it's about signal. It's not measured by how many follow, but by how much truth you're willing to carry when no one else will. The new earth won't be ushered in by force, nor fame. It will unfold through frequency, through individuals like you, quietly radiating coherence in a world addicted to chaos. Through your refusal to betray your soul for applause. Through your decision, each day, to embody a future the present can't yet see. So, if you feel like you don't belong to the world as it is, good. That means you're here to help shape the world as it could be. You are not lost. You are early. You are the prototype of a new kind of human, rooted in wisdom, guided by curiosity, unshaken by noise, and lit from within by light that doesn't ask permission to shine. You are not here to escape this world. You are here to recalibrate it cell by cell, choice by choice, moment by moment, until the vibration of your being becomes indistinguishable from the future we all ache to live in. And that future begins now. Not when the system changes, but when you do. Not when the old world collapses, but when you stop participating in its illusions. Not when permission is granted, but when truth becomes non-negotiable. Because the most revolutionary act in an unconscious world is to remain awake. And the most effective leadership isn't just about what you say, it's about what you can demonstrate through action and critical thinking. It's about leading by example, using your knowledge and expertise to make a measurable difference. The true power of leadership lies in the ability to solve problems, adapt to new data, and help others see the world through a lens of logic and reason. So walk forward. It's not about certainty. It's about the willingness to constantly reevaluate your position based on new evidence. Living with a deep respect for the process of discovery, because in science, that's what drives progress. And lead not because the world asked you to, but because something far older and far wiser within you already has. And one day, when others look back and ask, where did the new earth begin? They will not find it in policy or history books. They will find it in the quiet, unwavering presence of those who live the future now, of those who led by frequency, of those who remembered, of those like you